You know, when you sit down for interviews with international superstars, some are very friendly, some are very down to earth, and some are just really rather strange. Now, the reason why I mention this is because, well, apparently the palace, Buckingham Palace, way back at that particular time, were absolutely petrified about one particular picture with Princess Diana and the rock superstar that was, of course, the late David Bowie. But actually it was somebody else that they should have been more concerned with. As ever, let me explain. Morning chums, lovely to see you. Thank you so much for your time today. Sorry, we'll have a lovely wave, nice to see you. Yeah, I've been lucky enough to meet so many of these people, everybody from Freddie Mercury, through to David Bowie, through to George Michael. I met George Michael, I mentioned this a while back on the show, literally because I was working on a radio show and he phoned in because I did a few jokes about him and he thought they were funny. And then they invited him on the show, he came in, and that's how we became, I wouldn't say friends, but acquaintances. And the one thing I would say about George Michael is we went to a coffee shop literally very near to where the studios were in Knightsbridge, and he sat there anonymously just with a baseball hat on. Nobody bothered him, and he just seemingly wanted to talk to somebody. A really nice, warm, friendly, giggly sort of person, you know. He sort of did like the darker side of humour, and we got on, you know. I liked him. I thought that not only was he incredibly talented and a wonderful voice, I mean, literally a gift from the gods, wasn't it, that voice, but also didn't really care too much about the fame game. And we spoke a lot about his friendship with the late and beautiful Princess Diana, and the thing that, of course, he told me was that Diana, literally, he knew this 100%, had the hots for him. You know, I mean, it might shock people, but she really liked him. I think she probably saw the mother rescue side in him. You know, there was something about him that made you want to feel protective around him, you know, because he had that sort of appeal, you know. And Diana herself, I think, was looking always to find somebody to try of, rescue. You know, she wasn't necessarily a needy person in that respect. She liked to look after other people. George told me that on the occasions that he went to Kensington Palace, she did all the things herself, the teas, made the sandwiches and stuff. Just very down to earth, normal person. He said, but basically, essentially quite a lonely person through her own problems. But now we know exactly what Martin Bashir did. You can understand why she was looking for these certain individuals. But it was this particular picture that apparently frightened the palace. Can you imagine this? Way back at a concert for Hope charity concert, there were major stars on that bill. I remember attending that. And there was David Bowie. Oh yes, Space Oddity and Life from Mars himself, or whatever, Spiders from Mars. Well, apparently they didn't want this particular picture to go out of Diana and Bowie meeting. And I got this directly from David Bowie himself many years ago because he found this very strange. You see, even at that point in his career, and think about this, what we'd gone through in the 80s with everybody from Dead or Alive, Pete Burns to Boy George to all of that, he was still seen as the sort of godfather of the strange world of pop, as it were. And Diana, they didn't want any rumours about him and, of course, any romance. Now, David Bowie said to me that Diana was a wonderful, again, warm, nice character, knew a lot about his career, apparently loved the Let's Dance album that he had from Nile Rodgers and stuff like that. But as he said, she was very much on duty and they never truly became that friendly, unlike George Michael. And as George pointed out to me, Diana, knew the fact that he wouldn't be interested in her as a woman, but still liked him so much that she would call him up on numerous occasions and often would just talk to him through her problems. He said that he did his very best to help her. But the bottom line for Diana was that he felt that, there was always a new person waiting in the wings that was going to do better than the previous person. But as far as the palace being concerned about David Bowie, as he pointed out to me, actually, it was her crush on him that should have alarmed them, literally, because if that had got out, that truly would have been headline-making news. And at that point, of course, George Michael was still very much playing another song to the public, at least. Neil Sean in the very heart of Kensington.